What's happening, everybody? It's good to see you here on All Access Live. I hope you had fantastic Christmas. We're just about around the corner for the new year, and I'm excited that we get to finish off 2023 with a phenomenal guest. Before we do that, though, I want you to do me a favor. If you're anywhere other than YouTube right now, do me a favor. I want you to open up a new window or a new tab. Go to YouTube and go to the link below. Go to youtube.com/@accesskevin. And I would love it very much if you not only subscribe to this channel, but like this video and then hit the little bell so that you can be notified as I have plenty of upcoming guests coming up on the show. Next week, as a matter of fact, two really fun guests. I've got Cliff Barackman, who happens to run the North American Bigfoot Center. So it should be, if nothing else, a lot of entertaining stories about his discoveries. And then I also have Jamie St. James, lead singer from the band Black and Blue, made a huge splash here in Oregon and all over MTV's Headbangers Ball back in the day. He sang lead for the band Warrant for a while as well. So Black and Blue's done a lot the last several years, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, his connection to Kiss and Gene Simmons, and all sorts of fun stuff there. So you already know, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, like the video, you'll be notified. This show would very much like to thank a sponsor that happens to be also in the Oregon area. 5 Star Guitars is based in Beaverton, Oregon. And if you go to the link below, if you go to 5starguitars.com/allaccesslive, you're going to see a series of products, accessories, all sorts of great deals that have association with this show. You'll get a discount on everything you see. Plus, there's a promo code section. So if you go check out on their website, use the code ALLACCESS15, you're going to save 15% off everything you see there. Besides that, if you're outside of Oregon, there's no sales tax. So you're saving a ton of dough because you can buy guitars, you can get accessories and all that and not pay sales tax. So great deal, and they've been a very generous supporter of the show. So thank 5 Star Guitars. Now, my next guest, she has been a voice for our community. I'm here in Oregon City, Oregon. She's been a voice in this community, but also she's been a powerhouse award-winning singer. She's a blues singer. She's a rock and roll singer. She's done plenty for this community. She's a business owner. She's worked for the county before. So we're going to talk about her run for county commissioner and everything else that she's done in the community. So with no further ado, please welcome Rae Gordon. How you doing, Rae?
Hey, how are you? It's so good to see you, Kevin, and I'm digging the hair.
Yours too. I wish I had the fullness that you've got.
But you know, when I was a kid, I used to get perms, and then it turned out that I didn't need them. So I'd like my money back, if that's possible, for all the perms that I got growing up. So
should I even admit that I actually also got perms, and I did use them? So I did.
Was it in the 80s too?
It was in the 80s, yeah, and actually led into the 90s. I was in Montana. I moved here to Oregon and joined some independent alternative bands, and they immediately said, enough of the perms. You need to just let that stuff go. So that was took the mullet and went away.
Well, I thought you looked familiar.
Yeah. Well, I tried to look as close to everything else I saw on Saturday night Headbangers Ball on MTV, you know,
right.
And growing up with a bunch of cowboys in Montana, I tried to stand out and be different, which is what you do. You don't have any problem at all with sort of making your voice known and being a unique, independent individual.
I don't. That's one thing I always tell. You know, I'm doing this race for county commissioner, and a big part of it is that I want everybody to have a voice and everybody to feel valued. And I think us as musicians, we have an opportunity to do that, and audiences and who come and watch us, and we connect with them, and now I'm looking to connect on a bigger community level. In addition to that, yeah. Well,
you mentioned having the voice. I know that in your platform, and we can get into that end a little bit more, but I was thinking about how I first discovered you in the community. I've seen you not only perform with ensembles. You know, you've got amazing blues groups that you've had, and I've seen you at Trails End Saloon in Oregon City, all the way up to some private events. One of the things that really endeared you to me was a mutual friend of ours. Actually, you performed at his funeral here. So Amanda Lamar's husband, when he passed, you were there, and you You did this unbelievable rendition of Amazing Grace, and
Well, thank you.
I mean, to this day, like goosebumps, tears. There's a lot packed into that little frame of yours, girl. So you've got something that beyond just sort of trained skills. But are you actually are you classically trained, or where did you develop this voice?
So when I was growing, I lived in Tacoma for a short while when I was a kid, but most of the time I grew up in Southern California, and I moved to Hollywood at the age of 17, and within a couple years I was singing in piano bars and comedy clubs. And so that
Wow.
was a lot of fun, and that's kind of where I developed that. But it was not until I moved back to the Northwest and I walked into Trails End Saloon at a Robbie Law's Sunday Jam that I really found my blues voice. And Oregon City really is where I kind of developed that. And so that's where I did it. I did it as I went along, and had so many incredible music community musicians and friends and stuff that helped me to kind of learn and cut my teeth up here in Oregon, of all places, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, because if you're in Hollywood, right, and you're having to compete with, all these people. I mean, if you're there, right, in the Sunset Strip, and you've got a million musicians that have kind of come from all over the planet to come in and sort of hone their chops, you've got to, I mean, you had to have at least sort of developed some sort of unique sense about yourself. So were you going out and seeing a lot of live music when you were there?
Not as much as I should have. I was mostly going to comedy clubs and to a couple of open mics. And then
Okay.
I also, for a short while, do you remember Carlos and Charlie's on Sunset Strip?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did a open mic there. I mean, I ran an open mic for about a year.
Really?
And that was
Okay.
fun because you had comedians and musicians. So that was the deal at that time, including at the Belly Room at the comedy club, is that you had a singer sing and then you had a comedian do their bit. And so they switch. And that was the thing at the time. So that's why I always say that I cut my teeth in the comedy club singing. And it kind of gave me a kind of a unique training ground, so to speak, on doing music and also putting a little humor in it.
What years were those when you were there at the comedy club?
I was there from 88 to 95. So the comedy clubs
Okay.
were like 88 to 92.
All right.
That was like the
I
really good time when there was amazing comedians that were starting to really find their footing.
you know
And for
I
some reason, it looks like I have a filter, but I just think I have a dirty. There you go. How's that? Is that
well,
better?
see,
Oh,
yeah,
better.
that's great. I have this is my backdrop is a gig that we did in Phoenix this earlier this year, and
Nice.
I wanted to pretend like I'm still back on stage because the show started back in the pandemic when we were all stuck at home and nobody was gigging, and so
Oh yeah, it was. I loved your show, starting it and stuff. It really has been a great thing that you've been doing.
thank you. My hope is, as we're touring a lot right now, that I just continue to do the show backstage. So the idea is that we're hanging backstage. So I'm pretending like we're right back behind the stage at Trails End. You and I are chatting about the comedy clubs and Robbie Law's incredible guitarist and really
Great. You
incredible
live in
player.
Oregon City too.
I know. We have a community of incredible musicians that sometimes go unrecognized, and tragically, and I really feel like I should probably hold a moment of silence for somebody in our community that impacted me more than most in my industry. So maybe we can have a moment of silence for Gary Fontaine, who passed away yesterday. Thank you.
Gary was one of those folks that when I started doing music here in the area, like Candlelight, and really feeling blessed because people were teaching me stuff and letting me sit in with them. And he was one. We did some gigs in the beginning when I was really finding my voice here in the Northwest, and he had the most wonderful smile. And was just such an incredible person. And as your viewers might know or not know, he was part of New Shoes, with Valerie Day and was instrumental in that group as well.
Yeah, guys, if you're watching and you like, as Ray said, the '80s track "I Can't Wait," of course, is what New Shoes might be best known for. And Ray also alluded to the fact that Gary had this smile that was omnipresent. Like, you would never ever see him on stage or off stage without ear-to-ear smile. This dude was infectious and one of the most incredible bassists I've ever performed with. As I posted on socials, he saved my booty many a time on stage. We did gigs that I was out of my league, and he pulled me along like a coach. And we played internationally. We played in the Dominican Republic together. We did a lot of gigs in the U.S. and I think, as the community has seen, people have come together and talked about their stories with Gary. It's impossible to find, a negative story about this dude. He made friends wherever he went. And so I'm grateful beyond all belief that I had an opportunity to share a stage with that guy and share a space where he was very active in recovery. And it's something that's important to me as well. And that dude, he changed people's lives. And so, man, how fortunate.
He was so approachable too.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He welcomed to help anybody. So, rather than be somber, it's amazing that we had the opportunity to have somebody like that in our lives. And I feel very grateful. We should all be so fortunate, right, to have somebody that can impact us in such a beautiful way.
One of my favorite quotes, I don't know if I have the quote exactly right, but it's Maya Angelou. And it's a quote about, you may forget what people did, but you'll never forget how they made you feel. And that's totally Gary. It's like, I can't tell you what the gigs were. I can't tell you the songs that he helped, fix on the bandstand, but I can tell you how he made me feel.
Yeah.
And that's love and understanding and caring. So we all
pretty cool legacy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, really,
at the end, that inspiration to move forward and be like Gary, right?
Amen. Yeah. I see Scotty Kramer here in the chat saying it's nice to see Ray get her episode. Scotty's tour manager, worked a ton with everybody. I mean, Curtis Salgado is what he might be known a lot for,
yeah.
but yeah, man, it's good to see him here. And Caleb Rankin from Colorado coming in, chiming in. That's good to see. So,
right.
So we'll talk about the voice then, because being a voice on stage has sort of allowed you, and you're treading into some brave territory, right? I mean, because you're not a career politician, right? You're someone who has done a ton for the community in ways to sort of enforce or welcome change.
Yeah.
Clackamas County has seen a huge amount of change in the last decade. I've been here in Clackamas County since '95, so almost 30 years.
Me too. 95 is when I got here too. So
really, okay, yeah. I moved Multnomah County first in '94. Came to Clackamas in '95, Oregon City in '99, and so in the last 24 years of Oregon City, tremendous amount of growth. We've seen a lot of things that I see as high platform issues that you're sort of focusing on.
A lot of struggles.
Certainly. I mean, so the struggle part of things. We travel a lot, right? I know that, we talked about this offline about how every community is sort of facing a lot of similar changes, a lot of similar issues. And I travel internationally. I see how those things are impacted, and I see what things certain local governments are helping do, and how they're not supporting their community. So in terms of Clackamas County, maybe if you're cool with it, I'll just address maybe a couple of the high-level issues that you address on your website. So folks, if you want to check out, and you're anywhere around this area, I definitely welcome you to not only check out Rae Gordon for clackamascounty.com. It's RAE Gordon for clackamascounty.com. She's got a section there where you can go through Q&As. You can look at her experience and see how qualified she is. See events that she has coming up. You can donate. You can figure out ways that you can be a part of that support. But there are several issues that certainly impact everybody, not only in our community, but outside. So if you're outside Clackamas County, I welcome you to look at how she's addressing these issues and then see what your local politicians are doing to help support the community. Because there's absolutely no way that you should be in any of your community without having some kind of effect on your surroundings. My kids and I have talked about this a lot. They grew up in Oregon City. By the time they got to the age that they could vote, they felt like voting at a national level, say for president, became a futile effort if the outcome wasn't what they wanted. And the way to really make the change, as you know, is to start local and work your way out, right? So, let's talk to something that's really high on my list of priorities. Let's talk about houselessness, people that are less fortunate.
Oregon City did a really good thing a few years back. They hired a homeless liaison officer, and I was chair of the neighborhood of the McLaughlin Neighborhood District, which is one of the neighborhoods in Oregon City. And I got to tell you, I was a little skeptical about somebody in uniform going out and talking to people in their homeless camps, and it actually became an incredible program. So I really believe that the more that you really do the unique person, you're addressing the person and not putting a whole blanket on everything, because everybody has such a unique story that's all their own, and they have their own voice. And that's one thing about giving everybody a voice. So with the houselessness, there are so many people that are working hard to make a difference. And I like the idea of tapping into that and expanding programs rather than make totally different programs. And I know people get really excited and they're like, we're going to make this program, but instead looking at what's already existing and expanding on it. And another thing too that I don't see talked about, and I know could really be of use, is mediation between families. I know that some families don't want to welcome their family members back. There may be some issues, but I think every family and every person that is houseless needs to have that connection and that help and mediation. And families should be taught and be encouraged to know where their homeless their homeless family member is. And I think that's a big thing. Also, counseling is such an incredible tool. And I think there's a stigma against counseling. Like, I'll tell people I did counseling because I want to show people that it shouldn't have a stigma, that there's a strength in saying, hey, I need to go get help and I need to talk to somebody and get my stuff right.
Yeah.
And I think having counseling services that are free is really key. And as we all know, somebody is houseless for so many different reasons. It could be financial, it could be a drug issue, and also mental illness. And I'm sure that you've heard and you're aware that some drug use is a result of self-medicating a mental illness.
Sure.
So having that counseling and having that mediation between family, I think, is really key. And there may be people doing that. And there's people that are connecting veterans with services that they didn't know they needed. They're connecting people with housing and tools and employment tools. But I'm not hearing people talk about that family component. And the more and more that's done and the more it's talked about, the more people might be inspired to check out where their family member that maybe has been missing and they might think is homeless, they might be more involved. So that's when you bring that up, because
of course, mental health and houselessness really are hand in hand. I know that a lot of people that may be, I don't necessarily want to misuse the word ignorant, but people that are not well educated about the concept of people without a home. What the comments, the broad sweeping comments that you hear from a lot of people are that the people on the street are drug addicts and alcoholics, and they're just looking for a buck. And you hear about a lot of people that are so judgmental about someone. And what I oftentimes hear from those people are the inhumane lack of recognition that these are people's parents, their children, they are sisters and brothers. They are related to somebody else on this planet that may have overlooked them. So that connection to family is certainly key. a lot of the drug and alcohol use that I've discovered and found out about has come after somebody's been out in the street. That is their self-medication. That's how they're dealing with the mental illness that does come from being homeless.
Yeah.
There's a ton of statistics, right, that show that the longer somebody's out there, the less likely they are to retain, say, like a well state of mind.
Right.
Because it's struggle, right? You're out there. It's a constant fight for survival. And so if you're doing that and you're constantly in fight or flight mode, there's no stability in your life. There's no calm. And
right. And then people having to fight every day just to survive and be on top of things and eat and find shelter. They're not going to be worried about trying to fix things and mend fences with their family. They're not going to be, trying to reach out for counseling services when they don't know where it's at, or they don't know if they can afford it. That's why I think having free counseling and also free mediation. So the Clackamas County already has a mediation. So it's just working on it and working with the existing people that are already doing so much work out in the community and helping to support them and give them more support in the way of mediation and additional resources. But I mean, we're all, you never know, we're all so close. We could all be so close to it. During COVID, I got really behind on my mortgage, and I didn't know if I was going to end up in my van. And knowing me, I probably wouldn't have told my family if I did. And having a mediator and having, like, if I had access to a counselor while I was houseless, and they worked with the mediator, because it should be in tangent. So you have the counselor and you have the mediator. They may have gotten me to reach out to my family, and that wouldn't have been because they wouldn't let me in. It's just, it's just the kind of person I am. I would want to try to work it out myself.
Sure. Yeah.
So I was now I'm caught up, so it's all good. But
yeah, well, I mean, and that's fortunate for you. A lot of people aren't there yet, right? So you talk about,
you never know.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And so the rising costs of housing, of course, is a huge deal here. I mean, it's impossible for a lot of working families to be able to afford rents or mortgage here.
Right.
You talk about providing free counseling. So what do you say to the people that may insist that where's that money going to come from? Like the mental health facilitators and providers are not going to freely give of their time. So where does that finances come from?
Yeah, there's always ways to get grants as well as to allocate some funds, but that's definitely something that it needs to be a priority. So I'm definitely willing to figure it out and make sure that it happens.
Okay, so you get some grant funding and some assistance there. What about the affordable housing? So what do we do to be able to keep rents and mortgages at a level that we can provide opportunities for everyone to have acceptable housing?
There is some work towards that Clackamas County is doing, which I'm really happy for. There's some new build outs that have happened in Oregon City especially, but also I think we need to look at the creative side, and that's why I always say there needs to be more artists in political positions, because I think we have an opportunity to think a little bit more outside of the box, and so that if the box is, there's not enough in the box, right? So the ADU units, the accessory dwellings, and working on having permitting be cheap, less money and also more easy. A lot of times there's certain things that you have to pay for, and then if it gets denied, you don't get that money back and it's not put towards the project. So that's something I would want to look at, is because if you're going to have to pay thousands of dollars for something that may not happen, I see less people trying to even take that step. And I know people that have wanted to do additional dwelling units on their property, but they're like, it's going to cost this just to find out I can't do it. So there's got to be a way to be creative about that. Looking at existing larger homes that can be made into duplexes. And there's a lot of that in Portland. There's a lot of like old Victorian homes that are multi-units now, and that's something that we could look at, be creative. And then also there's also creative in home sharing and roommates. And I always said that if I can find somebody with the same, the same look on life and the same interest in stuff, I would want to have that person as a roommate rather than a stranger. So there's ways to look at how can we encourage that creative housing situation. So for me, it's looking at, how do we let the money that people pay for the potential to end up being part of the project, and then also how do we make it easier for people to do ADUs and split houses into multi-units, and then how do we tap into the community to help work on creative ways for people to share their own homes.
Okay. Well, I would say maybe we've certainly seen a change between the pandemic and right now. The people that have increasingly sort of shown up in both shelters and then outside shelters. One thing that I found in the downtown Portland area was that they've got family shelters, and then they've got women's shelters. A lot of times, like single male. Well, okay, I'm going to back up. I'm going to give you an example of a gentleman that I met about 5 or 6 years ago at Thanksgiving. I was doing a homeless outreach called Horns for the Homeless, and the idea, the concept we had was compassion through music. We would have musical performances, and we would have people come together from the community to provide things in this outreach, provide shoes or coats, sleeping bags, that kind of thing for people that are on the street. And we would do different events, and some of the stuff that we had that was surplus, hand warmers and these packs, we would bring those out to communities that we knew had kids in them. I ran into this guy underneath the Morrison Bridge here in Portland Thanksgiving night, and he was very well dressed. He had a button-down shirt, nice glasses, khaki chinos on. He asked if I could have an extra couple of these packs of hand warmers, and I said, for you, because it's, as an ignorant me, he didn't look like he'd been on the street very long. It looked like he was a business owner right there in the community. And he said, yeah, I want them for my kids. They're over here under this tarp. And he pulls the tarp back. He had his 2 kids gathered around a Sterno can, warming their hands. It was so cold at Thanksgiving. And I said, tell me your story. What happened here? And he'd worked at Intel, and he was laid off when they had tech layoffs. He had the 2 kids, and he could not get into a family shelter because single males with kids couldn't get in. If you were a couple, you could get into the family shelter. The line already, this is pre-COVID, the line to get into these family shelters was already they're way beyond capacity. And so since he couldn't get the kids in, he's underneath the bridge, under a tarp. And
that's hard. That's harsh.
It was really, really difficult to hear. And he explained his concept, and I realized that he's not alone right there. His story was very similar to a lot of people. So I've seen a lot of people in Oregon City that have shown up in different areas, whether it be tents or on the streets. And I hear people talk about their opinion. People speculate about where these people came from. We've certainly seen a rise in some drug use. Fentanyl has become a huge thing. It impacts families and people out there on the street. So how do you feel like the community of Oregon City, or at least Clackamas County, can deal with the influx of people coming from downtown Portland into these outer areas where they can because right now we don't have the infrastructure, right, to be able to do the multi-unit dwellings that you talked about. So what do we do with these people? What do we do as business owners? What do we do as community members to help with this influx of people that have come on the streets?
Helping the existing organizations that are deep in the trenches and are working on it, I think is the best way to go. But I hear you. That's what I was going to say about infrastructure, is you could make all these programs, you can make all these decisions and initiatives, but if you don't have the infrastructure to back it up, it's not going to go anywhere. So there's folks like Love One Inc. is Oregon City. I know the Father's Heart is helping. They are looking at doing something down. It's a little controversial, so we're going to see how that goes. But they're looking at doing a like a one-stop shop kind of thing on Main Street in Oregon City, at the old building right there. And the county is supporting that and has given them funds to help with that project. But I think more and more we need to just concentrate on the infrastructure. If we're going to help people, we got to have a way to help them.
Sure.
And I really truly believe that it's better to not invent a wheel and to really help lift up and put more resources towards and support existing grassroots. I'm really about grassroots,
Sure.
and working with Love One and trying to make that happen, but also changing so that we can get more affordable housing. And the only way we're going to do that, besides building new housing, is to be creative in existing structures.
Okay. Guys, if you're watching this, I'll make sure in the show notes, if you go to accesskevin.com and you look at Rae Gordon's page for this event, I'll make sure that I've got links to Love One Inc. or Father's Heart Ministry. If you want to help with any of these organizations and you want to make a difference in that community, there'll be opportunities to do so. I do recommend that you go to Rae Gordon for clackamascounty.com, because you'll see not only her platform, but again, you'll see how she addresses some of these solutions in a little bit more, in a little more depth. One of the things that you talk about on your page is public safety. So I'm going to read what you have here. I think this is really, really good for people to recognize, because public safety is a huge issue in all the communities. So Ray's got, Clackamas County is known for being an incredible diverse landscape, from cities, farmland, to high up to Mount Hood. It's a lot to cover, and the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office keeps up with a wide variety of programs and staffing. They're also highly regarded in their field across the United States, but it's not enough. The national perception of community safety, real or perceived, have had a serious impact on local forces and their ability to do their duty. Clackamas County needs to be a livable community where people can live their lives day to day without fear of risk or harm or injury to themselves and others around them. The ones who are sworn to protect us, they need that too. It's a partnership. So you've got public safety, you've got the law enforcement and people that are here to protect and serve in the community. Are you working as somebody that's campaigning for county commissioner? Have you sort of worked with those parties in public safety to maybe talk about planning for the future of?
So I'm in the throw of that now. I have some appointments coming up to talk to people, and I've talked to at length on a casual conversation with the sheriff. But my experience with police is first, I want to say that there does need to be accountability, and it's really important that police are held accountable like in any other industry. I mean, if any other industry that is in a lead kind of role, like a doctor or police, that they need to have a higher standard. So we need to make sure that we do not have people in staff that are not accountable and not transparent, but also are they are community facing. Sure. So that's really important, because I wouldn't tolerate in a business setting somebody not behaving correctly and not putting people above themselves in that kind of role. So that's I just want to put that out there, because I know, but I'm also, my experience with the police is I used to do search and rescue with the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office years ago, and it was an honor to work alongside some of the deputies in some searching and as well as training, and I was a police explorer as a kid. So interestingly enough, that was going to be my career path, was to be a canine officer. I still went into the woods with dogs and stuff, so it kind of worked out. So instead I moved to Hollywood. I'm like, can you imagine me singing while I'm driving somebody to jail? Hey,
yes, I can.
I probably would.
That'd be maybe more rehabilitative than some of the other programs,
Right. And I also I'm on the police it's called the Chiefs Advisory Committee, which is where the people from different neighborhoods in Oregon City, they get together, and then the fire chief is there, or somebody from the fire department and somebody from the police, and we kind of talk about what's going on, and we let our neighborhoods know about it. So I have a high regard, but I also I have a high regard as well for taking responsibility.
Yeah.
And here's the thing about responsibility. If you take responsibility for bad actions, that means you can change it. And that's why I'm really into taking responsibility. The one thing with that I think that would help overall is something called Citizens Academy. And so what that was is I was one of the people in the Citizens Academy, which was Clackamas County Citizens Academy, which brought different citizens from different areas through every department to learn about it. And I learned so much, and I had a more of appreciation, and also had a more understanding. And the more that community and the sheriff's department could find that middle ground and that understanding, the better we're going to build up that partnership. And partnership is so important to feel like you have a voice. And so if you're a partner rather than the citizen and the force, the law enforcement and the citizens, if you feel like you have a partnership, you will speak up more, and you will feel like you're valued. And that's the important thing, is to continue to grow that. Still hold people accountable, and don't stand for things that are not good for the community. Whether it's a police officer doing wrong or a program that isn't quite working. We need to hold those in those kind of roles accountable. But the more that you build up a partnership, and the more you connect the community with these officers, the more you will feel like you have some say.
It almost seems like that position that those particular roles have is so visible to the public, and you almost have to hold them at a higher standard. There has to be transparency, right? And so anybody in law enforcement that maybe feels like they're above the law, maybe when you see politicians or people in law enforcement that violate the codes of conduct that they actually are enforcing, then that breaks down the infrastructure, right? So I think I like the idea of accountability and transparency, and I'm maddened by politicians, right? I can't stand to see politicians on any platform that are hypocritical, and it makes you feel like the concept of democracy it's a futile effort, right? To maybe really feel, because you see so much not only abuse of those roles too, but the integrity of office is oftentimes compromised. And so this isn't like a Republican versus Democrat thing. I know that that's a huge issue here, especially in Clackamas County. There's not, when I leave the Portland area and I hear people talk about Portland, it's so funny because they know what they've read on media sources, right? They know what they saw on their particular news channel. And I think, okay, so I try to be objective, and I think, all right, so they can't necessarily be blamed if that's what they're seeing outside the area, and this is what they're being told that Portland is all about. Portland is a microcosm of everything, that's going on in America, but then Oregon City is even another, and Clackamas County is another smaller microcosm of that. And so I think we've got people from the two primary parties, but also you've got independents and independent thinkers. And so I feel like the commonalities that we all have, not the differences between people that have political beliefs on any partisan level, but the commonalities are really where we have to focus. And so you talk about education and partnership with the community. I think the more you can educate someone on issues outside of platform, it seems like a better way to build a bond, right?
I've been on committees. I've also been chair of neighborhoods and stuff. And what was really the first time I got involved in doing a committee, it was a Parks and Rec committee for City of Oregon City, and it was this light bulb came on. I'm like, wow, I really have a voice, and I just tried to inspire other people to be involved in their local committees on cities and counties, and because it really does make a difference. I mean, as a singer, one voice is good, but one voice can become a chorus. So the one thing I've always hated, and I always say that it's fighting words for me, is when somebody says, "It will never change. That's just how it is." I'm like, whoa. So that I refuse to agree, because nothing changes without one person becoming a chorus. And I I always when I was working for the county, I worked for the county for 10 years in tourism, and I really enjoyed, helping people all over the county and all these mom and pops and small businesses in every corner, rural and the Mount Hood and all that area. But back at the county, when I would want something to be better, I would hear that from fellow employees. I'm like, no, la 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 la. If you're going to say it's just the way it is, it will never change,
Sure.
then step aside, because then so other people could change it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thinking about tourism, right? So Oregon City certainly has had a great reputation for enhancing their cultural offerings that they have here. So maybe talk a little bit about Clackamas County moving forward in the next few years. What might bring more people in? What are ways that we can entice people to come in and help with both building the cultural aspect of maybe the downtown area and then all those of the surrounding areas?
So, like I said, I really love when you in any situation where you see what already exists, and then help support and grow what's already happening. So, as you know, Oregon City is a Main Street program. There's a thing called the Main Street program, and a lot of the small towns, they have this downtown core that needs to be revitalized. So they go to this Main Street program, and it's a national program, and it is facilitated in Oregon, I believe, by the State Parks Department out of Salem. But that's one thing, is looking at the small towns in Clackamas County, and if they're not in that program, helping to encourage them to be a part of that program. Also, I think tourism really could use a big support. When COVID was happening, there was so much loss. As we know, restaurants and venues, especially that had music, were not making it. So being able to infuse a little bit more help tourism-wise, a lot of people don't realize that Clackamas County has a tourism department, and their whole role is to use the overnights in lodging properties. They do, I believe it's still 6%. It might have been a little bit higher since I left, but at that time it was 6%, and that money goes to help market the area, to do ads and to do publications and commercials, to get more people to come in, and it's such a great way to stimulate the economy. I think also looking at these and seeing what isn't there, like diverse restaurants, also any kind of recreational outfitters, and doing more near rivers and stuff will get more people out. But there's such an incredible opportunity for visitor-friendly businesses to come to Clackamas County and to develop their businesses here in this great county.
Absolutely. That downtown area it's a remarkable area because they've kept, I feel like, the integrity of a small town Main Street vibe, but a lot of like national corporations have come in and made their hub right a block or two away from landmarks. So you've got the Oregon City Falls, right, which I think it's the second largest waterfall in the U.S. outside of Niagara Falls, right? So in terms of metric tons of water, and it's a really cool visual. And then that whole area below the falls, they've talked about developing that into a bunch of different recreational areas, and I don't know where that's at. Do you happen to know?
I do. So it's now owned by the Grand Ronde tribe, and they're working on some planning stages right now. They're breaking down and tearing down some of the buildings, and they're going to move forward with other initiatives that they got. And so for a while, it was owned by a private person after Blue Heron went bankrupt. But I think it's amazing that this indigenous people could reclaim that area that is so important to their history and to their heritage. Because it used to be a trading spot.
Oh, right. Okay. Back in the post Lewis and Clark, right? This is the end of the Lewis and Clark Trail. People might not realize that this is the end of the trail. That's right. So yeah, they have a park and an area right there where they've got the covered wagon sort of represented, and a historical area where you can find it. So if you're from outside this area, I know I've got a lot of international people that watch the show. Come in, visit Oregon City, come down and check out the end of the trail, Interpretive Center. And all right, so those.
Even in Mount Hood, I haven't seen them with my own eyes, but maybe somebody that's watching could corroborate this. But that there's still wagon wheel ruts sometimes, some places in Mount Hood.
Wow!
When they
incredible.
had to lower the wagons down on the cliffs. Yeah, and I'm not crazy.
No, that it doesn't surprise me. Really, we're not that far removed from those days. But how about like technology? Do you feel like Oregon and Clackamas County can sort of keep up with the progress that's happening? Because Oregon, we've got a major tech hub here between Intel and Tektronix and a lot of the big corporations.
In the Northwest, yeah.
In the Northwest, yeah. So do you feel like Oregon City is able to keep up with some of that and bring in maybe some of the high tech in this kind of
Oregon City is. I think there's some potential building of different parks and stuff that are in the works. But one thing that, speaking of tech and stuff, one thing we need to do is to make sure that all areas of the county, especially the rural counties, get access to good internet service. Because at this time, there is still a struggle for some.
We find it on the show, when the internet service isn't strong, we hear a little bit of the glitching happening here. How about environmentally? Do you feel like there's enough being done to protect the environmental aspects of Clackamas County?
I think so. There's enough groups like We Love Clean Rivers and Solve that is helping, and some other community leaders that are helping, but we could always do better. One reason that I moved here is that I came to visit for 2 weeks from LA, right? And I realized that you could see the bottom of a river. Who knew? Right. And I fell in love with the Molalla River corridor, and it's something that is still in my heart, even though I live in Oregon City now after living in Portland for about 10 years. I want that to be here for the next generation and the next generation when we're all gone. And so whatever we can do to make sure that happens, we need to make sure that happens. And it, like I said, it's such an incredible place, and I felt totally at home. And one thing this concept came to me just recently, and it's the whole concept of somebody planting a seed for a tree that they will never see grow. And that's how we should think about it. It's like, what can we do that will help the planet and our local Clackamas County for years to come when we're long gone? And to me, that is a full-on service above self. And so that's kind of how I look at things, is like, what can I do so I could leave the world a better place, especially for this home that I've grown to love and that made me leave my whole LA life and move back to the Northwest. And I think more and more that's what local politics needs is service above self, and somebody that is representative of who they serve. There's this thought that is in a lot of people's head that there needs to be more people in positions that are voted in positions that can remind you of yourself. It's like when you look at Clackamas County commissions and Multnomah County commissioners and commissions and people in those situations, all over the U.S., how many people remind you of yourself? Like, wow, that person's been there, that person struggled, that person has all these different ways of looking at life, and that person could creatively be a creative force for good. Yeah, and that's kind of what I tell people. It's like I want to look at my politicians that serve me and feel like they understand.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do you feel like well, you had a comment. Let me see if I can find it on your website. There was a quote from Arnold Schwarzenegger, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Because yeah, well, he's a perfect example, right, of someone who maybe objectively we look at he doesn't look like me. He does, but might not represent reflect me in the mirror. But one thing about him is he wasn't a career politician, right? He was
Right.
somebody who was self-made, and worked his way up and achieved all these amazing accomplishments, both in weightlifting and movies and acting and all that. But to become governor of California, then he affected tons of change, right? Where he did all sorts of things environmentally and supported the economy. So for me, those things are more admirable than all the achievements of his filmmaking. But there's a comment or a quote that you had in your public safety. The government's first duty and highest obligation is public safety. This was one of his platform pieces when he was California governor.
Right.
And so, taking somebody like that who maybe doesn't represent what the sort of the poster for a politician might look like, but somebody that comes from a community that wants to affect change and make a difference. So when you say that that's kind of what you want to be. You want to be a voice of your community. How can people? You mentioned that you want to be their voice. How can people contribute to this community so that their voice is heard beyond maybe the 3 components on your website?
Yeah. So, for my campaign to be somebody to be the voice of people so that they could have their own voice, there are those three ways that they can help me. For my campaign is the contribute, donate, so we can get yard signs, and to contribute by doing time, like volunteering. You can call, you could host a yard sign, or you could host a party, which that's fun, is a house party. And of course I'll bring music, and so volunteering, and also endorsing me, just letting people know that you want change and you want to put a little heart and soul back into politics, correct? And so and for themselves personally, I highly recommend going to your local city or your local CPO, which is community planning organization, and being involved. There's that, even if you're not in a incorporated city, you will have people involved in helping to make change in your own city. For me, it was the city of Oregon City that I first did Parks and Rec, and then I was on the budget committee, then I was on a grant committee, was on the Citizens Involvement Council, and then a few other things. I just couldn't sit on my hands.
Yeah.
But that is something you can do right now in your own community. And even if you're not in Clackamas County or you're not in Oregon City, that there is some people that will be organizing and doing stuff in your own community. Like I said, there could be a community organization, or the city has neighborhoods that have meetings, and it's incredible to be in the know and to know that your voice can be heard and you can make a difference.
Amen. I love it. It's amazing to me to think about how many hats you've worn, to be able to do all this stuff. I mean, I think you and I both know that idle hands, can lead. They just, they don't benefit you in the long run. I like the idea that you've done so many of these things to affect your community. It's not. What I've known Rae Gordon to be is somebody that's not looking for all the accolades. You're not looking to be recognized for look at me. I've done
do that.
Yeah. And so how are you taking care of yourself? How are you sort of giving of yourself so much to your community where you haven't spread yourself so thin that you're not leaving time for Rae?
Well, I gotta fit more time here and there for me. But I grew up in a situation where my mom was 17 when she had my brother, and she was 20 when she had me, and she was divorced at 23. So I experienced, being on welfare. But while we were on welfare, she went to school and she got a degree in criminal justice. And she went on to be the disaster coordinator for Orange County for American Red Cross. She was the person that would get called out in the middle of the night to go to a house that had just burned down and figure out what that family needed. And being a single mom, she could not leave me behind. So I was, I could be like 7 to 10 years old, I think it was. I would be following along with her. And I remember one time being on my hands and knees in a little girl's bedroom. I mean, I say little girl, I was probably 8 or 9 and she was probably like 4 or 5. And we were digging through wet soot, finding toys that had survived the fire. And
Wow.
and that I always remember that. And then at one time, I don't know if you remember this from years ago, but Anaheim had this terrible fire that happened, and a lot of and they kind of don't have these kind of shingles now, but they had these wood shingles, and it was this huge block of apartment buildings. So what happened is a fire started one place, and then it jumped and it jumped and it jumped. Everything was ablaze. So I was there in the canteen giving orange juice to firefighters, and I was I think I was 9 or 10, and so growing up with a mother that would stop at accidents, and we would have to sit in the car while she was helping. She always had a first aid kit. She had some EMT training, so it was always service above self. And so that's where I come from, and it just has always been a part of me. And I don't know any other way. The hard part with this, with running for a county commissioner, is having to tell people all the stuff I've done. Yeah. And that is something that does not come naturally for me. But if telling people the stuff that I've done for the community over these last, I guess, 10 to 18 years, gives me the opportunity to be in a situation where I can do even more in official capacity and inspire inspire other people to do more, then I'm gonna have to tell my stories.
Yeah, well, it doesn't come off. I mean, I think before, when we talked about the show, we talked about soapbox, right? And I mentioned that, yeah, well, so the idea of being on a soapbox, you're in the perfect sort of position to be able to do this. You're a wonderful voice for the community, but you don't come off as as grandiose and sort of self-promoting. But the idea of I think you gave me an analogy or some concept behind soapbox that I thought was great. What did you say?
Oh no, soapbox. Oh, maybe it's that where whatever I've done, that I've been in public eye, whether it's was helping at the wildfires, get people situated and getting them supplies, or being a singer. We all have the soapbox that we could use for good. And I don't know exactly that's what we talked about. But the thing is, if you're going to have a soapbox, I mean, you might as well use it, for good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not exactly what we talked about. I'm sure it was a lot better,
because I hear some people talk about musicians. Yeah. Because when you talked before, we were talking about the idea that people say musicians should stay in their lane. And, I remember somebody that I performed with was talking about Bono and how, he should just shut up and stay in his lane and be a musician. And I'm thinking, dude has affected positive change in 100 million people's lives, right? And so why not use that soapbox for an opportunity to make people's lives better? Maybe he feels, like, I don't know, to me, shame on somebody for faulting somebody for doing that, I think, because we should all be so fortunate to be able to affect that kind of positive change in people's lives.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what? And musicians and artists, especially above others, or not above others, but have this extra sense where we could look out on the audience and know if one person is having the worst day of their life. They could have a smile, but we know. And when you're really in tune to the audience and you want to make a difference, that is where I know that will carry well to public service, because I really have a lot of empathy because I've been there, and I also sense that. And we really have this opportunity as musicians, as people in general, to look for those times when we can make a difference. And the worst thing in the world growing up, and even as an employee, having this feeling that I couldn't make a difference even if I tried, because I wasn't valued. Like I wasn't a director, or I wasn't a lead role. or not hearing my voice heard when I saw things that were not okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have asked me why I'm running for commissioner, and there's just so many reasons. But one, it's we need politicians to be approachable, and we need people to feel like if they say something, they'll be heard. And I just know what it feels like, and when I see it in other people, and they don't even try because they don't think it's going to matter. Oh, everybody matters. Everybody has 100% value. How they got to that value may change. Like I always say, we're all at 100%. One person may have a degree, one person may not, one person may own a house, one may not. But whatever has happened to get you to the 100% doesn't matter. We're all 100%. And it just kills me and breaks my heart when I see people like go to try and go, it's not going to matter because it will never change, right? And then that's, like I said, that's fighting words. Tell me it will never change, and I'll show you it will.
I love it. I love
You're
that
so
positivity.
awesome, and I appreciate everything that you do for the community.
I just follow in your shadows, girl. One of the things I do on this show, sometimes it's funny and campy, and sometimes it's cool, and sometimes it's not. I open a fortune, and so we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out what Ray's fortune is. Okay, I'm popping this one open here.
I believe in those, for sure.
Yeah, well, I like them when they actually might really relate to our lives. So we'll find out how this one goes. Okay. Ooh, there we go. An important discussion involving you will take place today. So I believe that. We've talked about Ray and running for Clackamas County Commissioner. I think the fortune is appropriate. I'll post that one as well on your show page.
I love that.
Folks, if you came here late and you didn't realize, we have Rae Gordon here, who's not only a community member and an advocate for so many people for change, but she's running for county commissioner in Clackamas County. And you can go to Rae Gordon for Clackamas County, and there's a link right down below. You can actually see the ways that you can participate in her campaign and find out more about her issues. She is a voice, and I would love maybe to put you on the spot and wrap up. I had mentioned that one of the most impacting ways that I first got to discover Rae Gordon was at a mutual friend's passing, where a cappella, no accompaniment, Rae Gordon performed Amazing Grace. And if you wouldn't mind, I would love to maybe dedicate this one to Gary Fontaine, if you wouldn't mind helping end the show with that one. Is that okay?
Sure. And I will be singing the song this 31st at Trails End Saloon for New Year's Eve party.
Okay.
And other songs too. So
aside from the New Year's Eve, if you're wanting to know more about events that involve Ray too, you can go to her website, Rae Gordon for Clackamas County. On January 23rd, there's the Central City Concern. There's the candidate education session.
Oh yeah, that's going to be great.
So that's on the events page. Go and find out more about Ray and her contributions. And,
and I do need to do some more fundraising. We got to get some signs and stuff, and so that money will go to a good cause. And I also wanted to say that, if all you can donate is $25, that could be a sign, and that makes a difference. So one sign, one voice, that's going to make a difference.
Beautiful. Let's all do our part, folks. And I think that leaves me an opportunity to just let your voice shine. I'm going to take myself off camera, and if you wouldn't mind, we'll get a little taste of Rae Gordon, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, here's a song, one of my favorite songs. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Oh, so beautiful. You are incredible. Rae Gordon, you are a gem. We are very fortunate to have you. Hey, you're in the
Thank you.
community, and let's get this girl in office and make a difference in our community, folks. If you guys came late, please do sign up. Hit the YouTube link, youtube.com/accesskevin. I'm going to put it right here.
Thank you, Kevin.
Absolutely. youtube.com/@accesskevin. Subscribe. Hit the bell. You'll be notified about next week's episodes. Again, Jamie St. James from Black and Blue, and also Cliff Barackman, head of the North American Bigfoot Museum. So, Rae Gordon.
I have Bigfoot.
He's a big part of our national or our Northwest community, right? So, Rae, thank you so much, hon, and Happy New Year to you.
You too. It's going to be a great 2024, and I look forward to doing more and more for the community. I say more in 2024.
I love it. That's a good one. Thank you, Rae.
Thank you, everybody watching, and I'll hopefully see you soon in the community where you are.